Hey, welcome back to another episode of these crazy fools that just keep eating meat and can't shut up about it. Today, it's just me and Justin. Emily had to take a nap. Um, Raymond had to wash his cat, and
I don't think Ray even has a cat, but okay.
Joe is recovering from Father's Day, I think.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it's just me and Justin, and we are going to cover this article. This is the same sort of garbage that we've been hearing since we were little kids. This one is on something called eatthis.com. It's
All right.
called 28 Carbs That Won't Make You Fat. And so we're going to dive into this. We're
And
going to,
and it's evidence based. If you saw up there, there's a little it says evidence based. So like very similar to how in Idiocracy, how they're giving all the plants the like Gatorade, and it says, but it has electrolytes. If you try to they're just trying so hard to make carbs good or to keep its status as a primary food group, you know? And so, there's a lot of people, not saying our audience, because our audience is smart, um, but there's a lot of people that'll be like, but it's evidence based, very similar to Idiocracy when they're like, but it has electrolytes that plants crave. Pretty much the same thing. And if I might say, our bias is that feeding humans carbs of any kind is just as bad as feeding Gatorade to plants. You'll get pretty much the same results.
there you go. You heard it here first. And I like to add that in this article here, the advertisement at the top is for something called an Align probiotic gummy. So apparently, if you eat this diet, you need to eat these gummies because you're going to need the probiotics. So there you go. Anyways, this is article is very recent. It's from September 4th, 2020. Today we're recording it September 6th, so it's very recent. And it's by a person named Jeff Satari, Csatari. So, anyways, if you want to check it out for yourself, Justin's going to read along here, and then we're just going to tear into it a little bit, like we
Yeah.
love to.
Yeah. So here we go. Carbs have become the black sheep of the macronutrient family for no good reason, no good reason at all. Carbohydrates play a crucial role in allowing your body to function well. Healthy carbs can help with weight regulation, body composition, and even reduce risk of type 2 diabetes.
We're,
Fat.
let's just start on that right there. Carbs have become the black sheep because carbs have caused so many problems, and of course this article is going to argue that there's good carbs and bad carbs, and the thing that is going to mediate carbs doing damage to your body is eating tons of fiber. I guarantee it, because they always do this, but they never talk about the downside of the carbohydrates. They always try and pitch some sort of value saving content of one or the other. They never talk about how they're problematic as a whole, which is the real issue. So carbohydrates play a crucial role in allowing your body to function well. Allowing your body to function well. Let's just tear that apart and say why would your body not function well? Well, it's because you're putting something in it that causes it not to function well, right? So why would a carbohydrate allow it to function well? It makes no sense. This is this sort of Orwellian doublespeak that passes for good writing, right?
Right.
Healthy carbs. See, they're already distinguishing that there's some healthy carbs and some unhealthy carbs, and it's going to help with weight regulation. And again, talking about weight is pointless. You really want to talk about the next thing they say, body composition, which is more important, because most people are on the boat where they want to eliminate some body fat and they're going to benefit from putting muscle on. And even reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. So they're saying that carbohydrates, which are in themselves made from sugars, are somehow going to help you improve your risk for type 2 diabetes, which is largely brought upon by excessive carbohydrates, raising your blood sugar.
Just to go back to the silliness of the first sentence, the carbs have become the black sheep of the macronutrient family. Cigarettes have become the black sheep.
Yeah, that's true.
Of like entertainment, of plants and things like that. Why though? You could even say for no good reason. Cigarettes have been blackballed in media and in social society for no good reason at all.
Well, and the thing about carbohydrates is that we all tolerate a different amount of different kinds of carbohydrates. And to just sort of, say that some are good and some are bad is really just dumbing everything down. Because the truth is, anything you can actually absorb, you potentially run the risk of raising your blood sugar. And the only thing you're not going to absorb is the fiber, the non-digestible fiber, and some of it's semi-digestible. So you're going to get a little bit, and so on and so forth. But most of these carbohydrates are going to enter your bloodstream and raise your glucose levels, and then raise your insulin levels unnecessarily. So why don't you pick us up right here at
Sure.
Fad Diets?
Fad diets often lead people to fear carbohydrates, but the research continues to show that healthy carbohydrates from fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains are the healthiest fuel for our bodies. So it's the healthiest, says Hannah Kalovia, MD, PhD, Director of Clinical Research for the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and lead author of a study showing that a diet high in the right carbohydrates reduces body weight, belly fat, and improves insulin function in overweight people.
Again, they've just dumbed everything down here. They're just arbitrarily saying that fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains are healthy for our bodies. And that's just dumbing things down beyond belief. If you wanted to say, look, don't eat refined sugar, don't eat a bunch of high fructose corn syrup and stuff like that, fine. Don't eat a bunch of fake food. I get it. I think we're all on board with that. But just to say that all fruits and vegetables and beans and whole grains are good for you is ridiculous too. Because you could get diabetes from those things, just like anything else. They're going to rot your teeth, just like anything else. And they're loaded with anti-nutrients. Like we said before, all wild potatoes are toxic to human beings. And things like beans have to be processed in order to be edible. So you need to soak the beans and then cook the beans just to lower the toxicity. If you think beans are good for you, go out and eat some fresh beans. Just pick them right off the vine, chew them up and swallow them and see how you're doing. Go and find in nature where all these fruits and vegetables came from that are good for us. And then realize that even the ones that don't immediately make us sick have anti-nutrients in them. They have the potential for causing long-term health consequences. So it's the phytates, the lectins, the oxalates, and on and on and on. These are all defense mechanisms built into the plants to keep us and other animals from eating them. And yet somehow we're supposed to believe that a blanket statement like this means they're healthy for everybody and they're going to give you what you want.
And this just blatant appeal to authority. I mean, what is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine? She has a PhD. Look, I'm sure she's a smart lady. And as always, anyone that we ever talk about in these articles, or as the author, any of the doctors, whoever, they're welcome to come on to our show and defend their arguments. We're welcome to have anybody that thinks differently on the show. It's just this is our perspective and just what we've seen and what we've experienced. And there were commercials about cigarettes being great for pregnant women too. So doctors saying that.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure these people paid a lot of money to learn the wrong information or just to be indoctrinated with bad ideas. And so it's not entirely their fault that they believe this is true.
Right. So Dr. K says the key nutrient driving the positive results is the fiber in plant foods that adds bulk to the diet without adding extra calories. On the other hand, the carbs that make you fat are refined carbs that are lacking in fiber. These unhealthy carbs, sugary beverages, desserts, baked goods, and processed foods promote weight gain and increase hunger. That's why swapping refined carbs for these healthy carbs will not only prevent you from gaining weight, they may also help you lose it. So here's your grocery list, the best carbs you can eat that won't make you fat. And for more on the best carbs, there's a couple other articles, what happens to your body when you drink a smoothie every day, which maybe it might be next week's video or a special video in a week.
Smoothie bashing?
Smoothie bashing.
All right, I like it.
Hey, I used to do a smoothie every day. I'll be honest. I did that for a few years.
Yeah. A lot of people, I mean, smoothies were popular, you know, and it seemed like they were a good idea. But now we know, I mean, let's go back to the fiber. Fiber in itself is an anti-nutrient because it sucks a lot of the nutrients out of your body rather than letting you absorb them, including just water. Because that fiber that you pass that's supposedly so good for you is indigestible. It's passing through your body, and locked in with it are a lot of the nutrients you could have possibly absorbed from the other food. And like I said, also water. So it's carrying all that out of your body and not letting you absorb it. So why is fiber so good? It's probably good because it's actually blocking also a lot of the plant toxins that would otherwise make you sick. So yeah, eat plant foods with a lot of fiber because they're going to mediate the downside of eating plant-based foods, which is just like taking some medication that eventually causes another side effect. So instead of getting to the root of the problem and stopping the root of the problem, it's saying, hey, take this other substance, which in itself will cause a separate problem, but it'll alleviate or mediate the one you have right now, which is just dumb.
So number one, I don't know how detailed we're going to go into each of these because there's 28 of them. But so the first one is amaranth, which I've never personally had. It seems to be kind of like quinoa or something. It's an ancient grain.
It's basically a seed from a flower.
Okay.
It's basically bird food.
And they always use these things like ancient grain, get your ancient grains. And I think they put that spin on it because they know that people have this desire to eat more like their ancestors did. So it's like, right. It's an ancient grain, humans have been consuming it for 5,000 years, maybe 10,000 years,
Yeah, probably like maybe 4,000 to 5,000 years when they started cultivating wheat in the Levant area. That's probably it. That's when animals started getting scarcer and people started finding some of these grains that they could eat. But just because we started eating them 5,000 years ago doesn't mean they're good for us. That's certainly not enough time for us to evolve to eat them. And when you dig up the bones of people who cultivated these grains, you can see the skeletal deformation from the labor and the poor nutrition. And this is exactly why we shouldn't be eating bird food, because we're not birds.
And what's the most ancient human food?
Meat.
Right.
Yeah.
We got them beat by like 3 million years.
Yeah, this is the alternative. You eat this so you don't starve when you can't get animals. This is not a good idea. Same thing with barley. Barley's been well known for a long time. But, everybody could probably tolerate a little bit of barley, but considering it a staple or a super healthy food, all these foods combined don't have a fraction of the nutritional density that a beef steak does. And you can just look up the numbers. It doesn't matter if one of them is higher in this or that. As a whole, they are not as nutritious as meat. So like brown rice, I used to fall for the brown rice, and I used to get the basmati rice. And the thing is, it's hard to digest. If you're like some kind of super athlete that needs lots of extra calories and you have to eat something like rice to get those extra calories, you're better off just eating the white rice. And all the pros know that because it's way more digestible than the brown rice. And the brown rice will have a steady impact on your digestive tract. Now, if you eat a small amount, it's probably not a big deal. But again, not particularly good for you, like we were told. And lots of people have a similar experience to me where it just was hard. Now, I'm not going to even pretend to know anything about course saying.
I just want us to roll back for a second.
Yeah.
So go back to number 2, which I think is, the barley. So there's also this obsession in this article about, sorry, I'm trying to get it to go down a little bit, about cholesterol. It's on the cholesterol myth. That's a lot of that in here too, where they're like, trying to get people's cholesterol as low as possible.
Right.
And so it's another theme in this article.
They believe that LDL cholesterol actually causes plaque in the artery, right? That's one misnomer that they're perpetuating in here, and that these grains are going to lower it, and that lowering it is somehow going to be healthy for you. But as we know, people with low cholesterol, which isn't actually even LDL, tend to die faster from all kinds of diseases, particularly infections. So having low cholesterol is not a benefit to you, unless perhaps you already have heart disease.
Right. And the real cause of heart disease is that the lining of your heart and your arteries become sticky from inflammation. And then the cholesterol, where you're not processing it correctly, starts to stick, because you now turned the walls of your heart and your arteries into Velcro, pretty much.
Yeah, it's not really well understood exactly how it happens, but the particles, when you dissect one of these atherosclerotic plaques, you actually find all the components of blood in there, not just LDL.
Correct.
And it may very well be that these particles start building up there because there's some sort of injury or some sort of immune system response, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with just LDL floating around in your blood. The LDL is not just sticking to the arterial wall without a reason.
And with blood rushing anywhere, just like LDL, the cholesterol actually is an anti-inflammatory in the body. And so it's actually rushing towards these inflammation sites of the body, and the heart and your veins and everything like that being so important for daily function. Of course, you're going to get a lot of activity there, just naturally pumping the blood. And so it's seeing this inflammation in your body's like, oh, let's send this LDL there to calm it. So there's an unfortunate of like reverse causality with them opening the heart and being like, oh man, there's a tons of all this cholesterol buildup in there. And it's like, I've heard it described as, firefighters showing up to a fire, trying to put it out, and you just get more and more firefighters to like oil fire, let's say, and they're putting all that water on it and it's not going out. And then the cops show up and they're like, oh, because all these firefighters were here at this fire, the firefighters must have caused the fire.
Right. It's a misassociation for sure.
Right.
And this whole idea that lowering LDL is the key. So then, of course, they put all these people on statins. And like I had a coronary artery calcium scan done. The doctor scored it at 7. And he's like, oh, you should be on a statin. And I'm like, why? And I looked it up. And if 10 people like me was on a statin for 10 years, so that's 100 human years combined, it might prevent one heart attack. And it's not that statins aren't expensive. They do cost money, and they do have side effects, and they could in fact shorten your life in other ways. So to me, it looks like, well, you have a possibility of preventing one heart attack out of 100 years. It makes no sense to say somebody like me should be on a statin. And it's the same sort of craze and madness that goes on with believing that these foods are going to lower your LDL, and that's somehow going to prevent heart disease, when it might just as well increase your risk of dying of an infection or cancer.
Right.
So which food do you want to jump on? Yeah, this one type of wheat we've never heard of.
Right. Coruscant. Sounds like it's from a Star Wars movie. Me too. I don't know anything about it really. According to this European, journal, reduces cholesterol. Again, there's a cholesterol. Reduces blood sugar and chemicals that cause inflammation out the body. So I don't know, we'd have to really dig into that. But you have the name ancient grain again. Oh, here we go. Contains 30% more protein than regular wheat. The problem is that at best, when it comes to plant proteins, you're absorbing 40% of the protein of what's examined in there.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. The protein in plants is much less bioavailable, and it's less optimal for human beings. So obviously, if eating more protein is your goal, you should just eat a steak, right?
right, yeah, obviously. So, I mean, compared to wheat, you're getting 50% of the protein compared to,
Yeah, it's a fraction.
it's a fraction. Yeah. It's just
And
really
all these
silly.
things are row crops anyway, so they just destroy the soil in order to grow all these row crops like oats. I mean, didn't we learn anything from Wilford Brimley? First, he's telling us we got to eat oats for breakfast, and then he's selling us diabetes supplies. I mean, even horses get diabetes from eating too many oats, and they're supposed to eat plants, right?
Right.
So, and oats are notoriously hard on your teeth. Almost all of these foods are likely to cause cavities. And part of that is because one of the most destructive things to your teeth is streptococcus. Streptococcus loves sugar and starches. So does candida. They live in your mouth together. The candida can cause infections to other places in your body, and the streptococcus not only chews holes in the enamel of your teeth, but it also gives you a sore throat and can kill you that way too. So I think the argument for all this fiber and all these healthy grains is just ridiculous. And I think it's really just comes down to people wanting to sell you really cheap foods at a really good markup, and they don't care about the topsoil.
Yeah.
And here we go. What's this one all about here?
Quinoa.
Yeah, I'm arguing that we should call it quinoa because that's how it's spelled. And
Constant arguments.
It's really just a seed, right?
How to say that blasted seed. I never liked it. I tried eating it several times.
Yeah, I ate it. I used to cook it. I thought it was healthy for me.
Never find any way to make it palatable. Honestly,
No,
like I
it's
felt
got
like
a funky taste to it.
It just tastes like less than nothing. Like I felt like I could eat like cork board. It was more flavorful than it. I tried it so many different ways, like tons of salt and pepper. I mean, I think the only thing I didn't do was like cinnamon and sugar and quinoa.
Yeah, I could see that. Totally cover it up. Yeah, it's bird food. It's just seed. It might be nutritious as far as seeds go, but this is what you eat when you can't get any.
Does everyone remember? I think it's the quinoa sprouts that are the chia.
Are they?
I think so.
The chia seeds?
The chia.
I didn't know.
Or are they chia seeds then? I think they're chia seeds because it's chia.
Yeah.
Should be
all right.
Anyway, I would eat chia seeds. I remember as well. Yeah.
All right.
But you could do the same thing with quinoa.
Dude, you need a steak.
I need a steak. Yeah, I know. Whole wheat bread, everyone's favorite, and a whole wheat pasta. This shocked me. This honestly shocked me when I saw this in the article, because I thought we had evolved as people and knew that, like, okay, no wheat anyway for no peoples. I thought we had come to that conclusion because I'd gotten away from wheat, 6 years ago, before carnivore or keto or anything, And here we are back with the 100% whole wheat. That's got to make sure. You got to make sure that on the bread, bag, that it says 100% whole wheat. That's make sure it's good for you. It's a good bread for weight loss, apparently.
You could pile all these grains onto that whole wheat, make yourself a sandwich, throw some of these black beans in there with it, and you're still going to be nutrient deficient compared to just eating a steak.
Right. And your stomach is not going to be happy. Trust me, I've done it.
And again, beans, even black beans, they have to be detoxified so we can tolerate them. And even then, different people are going to tolerate them at different levels. So they're not this great. They're a great source of protein. And you look into it and you're like, yeah, they're generally more carbohydrate than protein. And those proteins are plant proteins, lectins, which are inferior to meat proteins. And of course, we've had some pretty scary studies that implicate lectins and Parkinson's disease.
And Alzheimer's.
So yeah, something perhaps we should reconsider. And again, yeah, we know lots of people who don't eat any fiber and they poop just fine. So that's, if you're having trouble pooping and you got to eat a bunch of fiber, guess what? You're on the wrong diet.
Right. And, they try to play the vitamin card, B6, folate. There's so much more in meat and bioavailable.
Yeah.
I mean, the best source of B vitamins is meat.
Yeah, and it won't give you gas, diverticulosis. It won't give you IBS. It won't give you Crohn's disease. So yeah, so meat's better. And chickpeas, another row crop. They grow the shit out of these things. They kill the soil in order to do it, and then they try and convince you that hummus is like the food that's going to make you live forever.
Yeah. Oh man, the hummus that I would eat, the garlic hummus, with crackers or whatever.
And this is essentially the same type of protein they put in the fake meats, right? This is a chickpea, and they mostly use the yellow pea for that, but they do use the chickpea in some of them, and it's inferior. And that's why it's, as a food staple, it's not going to be very good.
When you talk about eating raw, you can't eat hummus raw, or you can't eat chickpeas raw. They're too hard.
You can't eat, if you try to eat a fresh raw chickpea, garbanzo bean, a kidney bean, or whatever, it's just going to make you sick. You have to detoxify and cook it. The same thing is true with corn. If you try to live on corn, you're going to get pellagra. And the thing about corn, if you really want to get nutrients out of it, you need to soak it in an alkali solution at temperature in order to break it down so that we can absorb those nutrients. And even if you prepare corn properly, it's inferior to just eating beefsteak, cooked or raw. And yeah, for all the silly vegans out there, human beings can and do eat raw meat all the time. Here we go, kidney beans. Here's a fast way to get oxalate poisoning right here. Just eat a handful of these raw, and then
right there,
start driving towards the hospital.
That little spoon spatula looking thing. If someone literally was like, "Oh, hey, this looks healthy," and literally took that much and ate it raw, just like in the picture, they would become severely ill.
And there's no way we had time to evolve to eat this stuff. And most of these are lower toxin strains that were bred by human beings. And you have to imagine, how long have we been cooking with fire? Well, it's sort of debatable. But if you didn't have the ability to soak these and then cook these, you would have never been able to eat them. So the soonest we could have started to adapt to eat these things would have been somewhere after we started using fire to cook.
And what's upsetting is that that's known. I mean, there's usually in these articles, they at least admit, oh, kidney, don't eat them raw. There's at least a disclaimer, the kidney beans. But in this one, no. Totally fine, totally cool.
Right.
No worries.
Same thing with lentils. Most of those nutrients in lentils are going to go right out your butthole. You just don't really. Again, lots of fiber and everything. You're not going to absorb a lot of the nutrients out of lentils, even after you soak them and cook them and spice them up and all that. And there's good old apples. They don't mention anything in here about apples, having a lot of sugar in them. And the sugar content in apples is all over the place, but most of them are on the high side. So
I had an apple a day.
I did too.
And I was not avoiding the doctor.
I was not either. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. I thought that was a good idea. And I was like, hey, I can eat an apple every day, right?
Right. Yeah. They're
good.
Good. They're sweet. You got all different kinds. You got Golden Crisp. You got
Fuji's,
which are great. Granny Smith, the sour ones. Some of those are good. The baby apples.
Have you ever had an Envy?
Oh, an Envy.
Envies are really tasty.
Even went out and did apple picking before as well.
Yeah, sure. What's that place over here in the mountains? Julian?
I haven't been there.
Yeah.
I went to the one in like Oxnard or whatever.
Yeah, so you could go out there and pick apples and stuff like that. But I was at my sickest when I was eating an apple a day. Yeah, absolutely. And I'd eat bananas too. And it was driving my arthritis crazy. It led me to all kinds of problems, including anxiety and psoriasis and obesity and everything else. Really cut into my Now, I won't bash avocados too much.
No.
I love avocados. I'm not saying they're healthy for everybody, but
At
they're
least it
not a
has some
sugary
of the good
fruit.
fat in it, which they
Yeah,
and meat. Like that's the best thing that they put so far. I would put like the avocado number one. I would put that like at the start of the
yeah.
article.
And to be honest with you, I don't think we really evolved to eat avocados. They taste great, and for most people, they don't cause any sort of health consequence that we're aware of. So we kind of leave that one alone. And I'd say the same thing about blueberries. Most people could tolerate some blueberries, but again, we only got exposed to these things seasonally, so
Right.
we shouldn't be eating them all year round, more than likely.
Right. And so like, if you have berries around you and they're just naturally growing, I mean, I've had them, I've eaten them, I
Right.
visit family up north in Northern California, at least before COVID, Tecate virus. And, there were,
Would you fight a bear for blueberries?
I would not fight a bear for blueberries.
All
I
right.
don't think that would go well.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think so either.
He's much more carnivorous than me, even.
Yeah. Well, you might have a few pounds on you too.
Right.
And cherries, I like cherries too. Cherries don't really cause me any problems, but I don't eat them anymore. And again, these are all agricultural crops that wouldn't widely be available
Tom, I
to
have a
us.
question about cherries for you.
Yeah.
Are the seeds actually dangerous for you?
Well, a lot of these pit fruits, there is enough cyanide in them that if you cracked them open and ate the inside, you could poison yourself.
Because I used to always eat my cherry seeds because I thought they were good. I don't know.
But you didn't chew them
No.
because they're too hard.
Right.
Yeah, so they just go through you.
Okay. Whew.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit late now, but at least I don't
here.
have anything to worry about in the future.
Now, this is a confusing fruit right here, grapefruit. It has a name that makes no sense other than it is apparently a fruit. Tastes nothing like grapes. I mean, whoever invented this strange, bitter fruit that supposedly is good for us? I think what happens when you eat grapefruit every day is you just starve to death and turn bitter from eating something that tastes bad.
And people are so posh about eating their grapefruit. I just want to roll back there for 1 second because it's going back to talking about blood pressure, which, hey, it might, reduce blood pressure,
But anybody who has to take medication is warned, don't take it with grapefruit because
right.
one of the problems it has is it stops your liver from detoxifying and breaking down some of these compounds. So right there, that grapefruit, the chemicals in grapefruit have a powerful effect on you. So assuming that's good for you long term, I think is a big mistake.
Right.
Kiwi?
We
blame it on Bart. Bart, stop sending kiwis. Go down there and tell those ships full of kiwis to stay in port.
And again, here their argument is reducing LDL because that's their obsession.
Right.
And then the vitamins that you can't absorb.
Yeah, I'd love to see like the experiment of one where somebody can show me some documentations that just eating kiwis lowered their whatever cholesterol, blood pressure, LDL, whatever they want to throw at it. The grapes, well, I mean, seasonally not so bad, but again, it's one of those things that can potentially rot your teeth and raise your blood sugar. So better than starving, not so bad if you eat them seasonally. Eating them all around or all year round and basing a diet on it makes no sense because they're not particularly nutritious.
What do you think about raisins? Because when I was a kid, I would love a box of raisins.
We all ate raisins when we were kids, and they're horrible for your teeth. You're just sticking globs of sugar on your teeth, and dentists will tell you that. Yeah, I mean, when you're a little kid, are you running to the bathroom and brushing your teeth every time you eat a raisin or something? Of course not. Do we evolve to do that? We didn't have toothbrush, right?
Right.
So if we were eating raisins and grapes all the time, we would have never made it. Just like watermelon. Watermelon are not natural.
Do you want to tell your monkey story about grapes?
Yeah. So before I was carnivore, before I was keto, before I was low carb enthusiast, I was at the fair. A guy had a monkey for some kind of animal show, and this little monkey, I don't remember what kind it was, loved grapes, and he would give it a grape as a reward here and there, and the monkey would grab the grape and suck the juice out of it, and then throw the rest of the fruit on the ground. And the guy's talking about, well, see, this is what the monkey's just juicing, and this is one of the reasons why they're bad pets, because they're always throwing this fruit on the ground and stuff like that. But he's like, maybe we should take a lesson from this monkey, because he's a juicer, and he's a healthy, strong animal just living on fruit juice. And you think at some point that makes sense, but the truth is it doesn't make sense, because we're not really those monkeys anymore. And even the diet of different kinds of primates is very different. So anyways.
But the point there of that story was how they didn't eat the fiber or any of the stuff
right.
that they're claiming. They just had the juice, and then they got sustained on that.
Yeah, skipping the fiber and just having the juice,
which is probably better for their teeth, I would assume. And just maybe, easier on their digestion.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Anyways,
yeah, and a lot of people made the point about watermelon. Watermelon, just in the last 100, 200 years, is a very different fruit than what people were cultivating. And one of the things is watermelon is one of those things that shows up in paintings a lot. And so you see these very carefully painted images of watermelon, and you can just look at that record and realize that these things have just been bred to be sweeter, so to have more sugar, to have fewer seeds, and to grow in more climates, so they're available for greater periods of time, and so on and so forth. And again, watermelon, not particularly nutritious. Go ahead and try a little bit of watermelon if you want. You're going to be eating all day and all night.
My grandmother would always be scared of me swallowing the watermelon seeds. I don't know why. I just remember being an issue.
That's grandma's for you. She knew something we didn't know.
Right.
Squash, again, most squash are going to come out of the nightshade family. A lot of people, like myself, don't tolerate them well. They're not particularly nutritious. Just because they're high in this or that, or they got a ton of fiber in them, doesn't mean they're good for you.
A lot of people in the keto community, when they're switching over from pasta, they will use squashes, zucchinis, because they are low carb. And they're low oxalate, low chemicals, etc., low disrupting to the body. And so a lot of people will get a spiralizer, and as they're starting out on a low carb journey, will replace typical pasta with, squashes, zucchinis, etc. So not terrible, not the best, but I think it is a good stepping stone for people that are starting out on this journey.
Sure.
But of course, if you just...
It's a good way to go low carb.
Sure. Yeah. But, forget all that.
If all that fiber doesn't tear you up.
Right. I think Tom would agree with me, but forget all that. Just get a package of ribeye.
Yeah. Just eat steak.
And butter. Maybe if you can tolerate butter. Dairy.
Maybe some butter, yeah.
Or an air fryer. You don't even need butter then, Or grill it, just right there on the grill. Have a steak.
Throw it in a cast iron pan if you're lazy like me.
Right. And just collect the fat, right? Over time.
If you're like me and you'd rather buy a sound bar than an air fryer. So let's go on to beets. Beets get a lot of publicity because
they taste terrible. If it wasn't for publicity for beets, nobody would ever eat them.
I had a beet salad in Costa Rica that was actually pretty good.
Oh, okay.
But that's it. I got a terrible story about beets I could tell. But they're saying here, drink 500 grams of beet juice. And this is good for you. And it's known, there's this known effect where your body will produce more nitric oxide in your blood, which is deemed to be beneficial. They don't say anything about the downside of that. So when I was a kid, my mom believed that beets were good for us. She'd make us eat them. And one time, my sister threw up.
Really?
She threw up the beets in her glass of milk, and my mom made her drink it.
Oh, that's terrible.
Sorry, sister. I had to tell the story. Bell peppers, again, a nightshade. You know, they got this silly idea that you need all this fiber and that these bright colors are somehow super nutritious. And yet, again, none of these foods have the sort of nutrient density or bioavailability that regular steak has. And then broccoli, because we need sulforaphane to trigger the uh, uh, the hormetic effect, right? We need a
Right.
little bit of poison from our
Oh,
broccoli in
yeah.
order to fight cancer.
You
Which
should
makes
look up
no sense.
broccoli on your thyroid. Ugh.
Broccoli on your thyroid, there you go. It's a
Yeah.
goitrogen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these things are goitrogens. They rob you of other nutrients. So and Brussels sprouts, which of course I always hated because they stink like garbage. And if you want, I would recommend you take all the Brussels sprouts you find and send them back to Brussels because they should deal with that, not us. And then cauliflower, a lot of keto people, eat cauliflower as a substitute, but again, it can be hard on your digestive tract. There are some anti-nutrients in there, even though it's low carb. But
It's
again,
like the worst broccoli. I don't even know why people were fighting so hard to
I
eat
don't know. It looks like
cauliflower.
it looks like an accident. I mean, what is going on there? That is one effed up flower. Kale is a
The
failed.
holy grail. We're not worthy to talk about kale.
Kale it was meant to be fodder for animals, and they can't eat it, so they decided they'd sell it as human food. And good luck to you if you want to live on kale, because it's really not good for you.
Well, of course it's diabetes friendly. There's no sugar
It
in
is
kale.
it's low sugar. It does have some vitamins in it, and it has some K, not K2. But if you want that, you should just get it from me.
Right.
Yeah. Red cabbage. Well, red cabbage, green cabbage, really not that big of a difference. And again, really hard on the digestive tract, and not really all that nutritious. Potato, sweet potato, a little bit more so, a little bit more. But again, these are modern inventions because these foods were originally too poisonous to eat, so they had to be detoxified in order to be edible. And again, lots of carbohydrates, lots of starch in here. Most of the starch is going to get turned into blood sugar. So that's why you don't eat them.
And that's it. We did all 28.
We did all 28.
Yeah.
We'll stop to share. But we want to thank everybody for watching. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think. Send us some articles to tear apart, and send us some good articles to talk about as well. Make sure you give us a like, the old thumbs up. Leave us some comments. Subscribe to the channel because, of course, that's the hardest part of all. But we want to thank you for watching. I want to encourage people to eat some meat and feel better.
Yeah.
And whatever you do,
don't fall down the carb hole.
I just let him say it so people can finally understand what we're saying.